Hello, everyone. We're here for our recap of our challenge run of Dream Eaters. And before we get into it too much about our decks, I kind of wanted to just recap what that challenge was. So, several months ago, when we started this, the idea was to play the 5-2 investigators, 0-5
Mhm.
in the main class, 0-2 in the off class. And we didn't just pick them, right, Justin? We did the wheel.
We spun the wheel, and the wheel determines all.
So I was told to play Luke and Daisy because it's the two Mystic Seeker splits, and then you got
Mhm.
Joe and Roland. So part of the challenge was to figure out how to make those investigators work in a team. We decided Roland, Daisy, Luke, Joe, and the other part of it was to share a single card pool. So I want to just put this to you first. To what extent do you think that stipulation, or all of the stipulations we had, because we weren't just jumping in building whatever deck we wanted or playing
Yeah,
whatever investigator we wanted. To what extent was this a challenge?
I think that I think it impacted you more than me, just because I think that there's a lot of good both seeker and mystic cards that are there's a lot of like you kind of just want them in every deck,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm sure like if Daisy could, she probably would have taken potentially Promise of Power, right? Or even like just like the Eurekas, finding those cards that like can get the job done and like just define just the foundation of your deck
Hmm.
are kind of like harder to grab. There's some other things too that I think especially we saw because we had there was the seeker split between us.
Hmm.
So we had to make that work between our decks. So like you and I talking about Joe and Daisy, and I was looking back and I was like, my economy isn't great, and I'm like, oh, it's purely because we were splitting everything together, right? Like I could have just played emergency cash, but those weren't really good enough for my Joe deck. But I couldn't play crack the case because those were in your Daisy deck. You couldn't play
Hmm.
my burning the midnight oil. These are all things that would have been really good, but because we had the limited collection, we weren't able to really like make it work. And I know that like a lot of people do play with limited collections, and I think that they might not be aware of this until you start playing with multiple collections. But these things do add up to just kind of like not necessarily ruin your deck, but like bring the power down like even 3%. But that 3% can sometimes be the difference between a smooth situation in a scenario or a rough situation in a scenario.
Yeah, the staples, splitting up the staples is a challenge. You're deciding.
Mhm.
I did this, played with one collection with my in-person group recently as well because we were on vacation. We just had one of our collections, and figuring out who takes the ward of protections. That's
Yeah.
sometimes hard to do in a larger player count too. For only two players, although we're playing really four decks, it makes it
Mhm.
even spicier. So I agree with that. I also think just the teams were um, they were good, but we had to make some decisions, especially about the Luke and Joe team in our deck building, and we landed somewhere that might not have been optimal looking back.
No. Yeah.
Uh, and it wasn't just like some of the cards that went in, but just the whole idea of like what does uh, a Luke Robinson deck that focuses more on fighting get you, right? With the card pool, with his ability, with the gate box, etc. That was probably like not the best Joe deck I've ever built or played because it had to make some concessions there because I think Joe Diamond leaving Clue getting on the table with the Seeker access and just his hunch deck is a mistake. So I mean, we saw that Joe was really, really good. So not just telling you to build for fighting all the time, I think was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, where I really didn't have any way of getting clues in the Luke Robinson deck because I needed to spend a lot of my card budget on ways to deal damage and to pass tests. And that's a
Yeah.
challenge, I think.
And it's especially tough on the Mystic side too and two player. We've talked about this before.
Hmm.
I think I've made you a believer that like Mystic and two player is very difficult. Um, I would say harder than like any other class. They're the one that I always like. I mean, not so much on the clue side,
Yeah,
because
just the
like,
fighting side, really.
yeah, like Sixth Sense works well, but Wither doesn't, as an example, right? So it's like one of those things you could just like play that and essentially become Book v Shroud value over time. But for fighting, it requires so much more space, and that is like kind of ultimately why it went the way that it did with these decks, right? Because also, yeah, we were like building the Joe deck, and we're like, man, this Hunch deck is just like leaning towards clues. I think
Mhm.
we have to like do this. I do more clues with some damage, and then you do more damage with some clues. But as we know, some things happened to Luke there that kind of altered the course of history.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Like the mystic thing is just it's tough to make room in the deck for everything to work, and it pushes some stuff out, right? It pushed out
Yeah,
my way of we'll talk about these like decks in more detail in a second, but it just I think the challenge made it more challenging there, but also it's was already tough. So I think the investigator spinning the wheel thing, it would have been really different if we had picked Trish and what Lucius or something, right? I think that
yeah. Oh my God, yeah, yeah.
would have been really
I
easy
feel
for them
like
to fit into
for
a role. Yeah.
yeah, the next thing is if we do revisit this challenge and we spin the wheel, we have to choose the same. Like, so we only roll once, and then we each have to take one of the two,
Hmm.
because that's what Bryn and I did for the first one, and it was very, very compelling. Because Dream Eaters has this little bit where we had this thing where we each could build two.
Right.
Um, like same collection building with one. It's just such an interesting like challenge and experiment to try out.
So it was very fun, and I've really had a good time puzzling through this.
Yes.
But even though, like on the face of it, maybe from the beginning, it doesn't look like a challenge run in the way that we've done in previous runs, where we have some like crazy deck building, like the sealed runs,
Yeah.
or even the paradoxical run, where we were really trying to do something that was difficult to do to highlight something.
Mm,
Um, I felt like this was ended up being more of a challenge than I had anticipated at the beginning.
yeah.
Like it felt more like a
Ultimately,
theme before, and now it felt like
yeah.
actually there was a challenge here.
Ultimately, anything that restricts your deck building in a format that is normal, otherwise open,
Hmm.
it's a challenge run. It is. It's like there is the challenge is just some limitations, but when we come comfortable,
Hmm.
it's like one of those things we were joking most recently. We were like saying we're going to get to the finale in our Drown City rerun with 80 XP in our deck because we loaded our deck with so many cards that gave us extra XP, and we're going to blame the game, right?
Yeah.
But like it's just like the legacy pool is powerful, so as soon as you start taking some stuff away or limiting that, it becomes a little bit more interesting, a little bit more challenging.
And the game did very well against us.
It did.
It
It
did.
tried to kill you
It
multiple times.
it did. I guess it's on the screen, so
Yeah, let's yeah go show
I
the
should
your
show the this. This is absurd. I've never seen anything like this. I don't think that many of these were Daisy's Necronomicon. It was maybe
no
like two or three.
yeah yeah
So you can do some mental arithmetic if you think that's the thing that matters to you. But to me, it's the result of the token pull, and that's bad.
yeah.
And over on your side,
Yeah,
a
mine
nice
was normal.
a nice even
What
split.
this like if I could get this every time, I'd be a happy guy. Like this is what I want from this. What you had was torture. Mine is just like a normal Arkham experience. But even like when you look at it, right? Like you said, 15 to 32, we had like twice as many auto fails in the campaign.
Yep.
That's like, yeah. That's a brutal go at it.
It's also a lot for the number of scenarios, I think, for the most part. Like I drew seven in one scenario.
Yep.
That was brutal. Okay. So let's talk about the decks. I just want to show you on the screen an overview of what you're looking at first. Let's look at we can do the Joe and Luke ones. They're sitting right here first. It was the B team, but just as an overview, here's what the Joe deck looked like, and there's some skills here at the bottom. Your permanent treachery was indebted. Nice to not have any weaknesses in your deck. And then, yeah, we'll talk about it, but this is not Luke Robinson. This is actually the homunculus. So that's an overview
Yeah.
of what this deck ended up looking like at the end. The beginning was actually pretty similar because, well, it turns out when you become the homunculus, you don't get to upgrade cards. So what happened was in scenario two, so the Thousand Shapes of Horror run, um, we knew this was going to happen, right? Um,
Yeah, we knew
this
the risk, yeah.
we knew the risks. So this card, oh, I guess we don't have the other version of this the great work. It gives you +1 XP at the end of each scenario. The cost is that if you are ever defeated, then you turn into this guy, and you cannot add, remove, or upgrade cards in your deck. You do get an ability to get +2 skill value on spells, which is actually fine for that because I'm back up to the 4 I had as Luke. But the bigger problem here was the 6/6 health sanity split because of the one collection stipulation, we split up the XP cards. And I really wanted to play an Astronomical Atlas deck. So I put 3 XP from In the Thick of It into this card to start with. And
Yep.
you're laughing over there because we never saw this card in the first 2 scenarios.
Yeah.
So all that went to for naught. I also took 2 more mental trauma from Arcane Research, um, which admittedly, and we'll look at the down that hole in the other deck as well, is probably at its worst in a 4 scenario campaign. But you know what? We were having a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
So once I died, and notably, this kind of harks back to the point I made earlier. Fighting, I think, with this deck pushed out other traditional ways of like soaking. So I just
Hmm.
didn't have card space for it. All we had was the research librarian to find the atlas, which also whiffed. Um, yeah, so I have the 5/9 split with Luke, and this turned into 6/6 with the 4 mental trauma going into scenario 3, which made it really, really uh, difficult to play. Um, really stressful to play. But that is the consequences of picking something that got me some extra XP. The funny part is that I never actually spent the extra XP from the great work itself because
Yeah.
I held on to 1 XP after scenario 1. So this was just like handcuffing me for no reason in this
Yeah.
campaign.
You just wanted to add an extra challenge to it. You were like, this is actually a homunculus run. Yeah.
And I've done that before. When I played the Scarlet Keys with Pax and Philion, I took the advanced searching for Izzy for no reason but to make things even harder just for fun because
Perfect.
the
Yeah.
+2 shroud affects the concealed mini cards. I was just like,
Yeah.
look, it's 3-player. I bet we're gonna do well. Let's just make it a little bit harder, you know? Because you get to
Yeah.
choose your own difficulty level in this game.
Exactly. Yeah. So with your one upgrade for Luke, why did you prioritize what you did, and how did you feel those upgrades impacted your homunculus deck? Because you weren't expecting to be the homunculus, but this
No.
was the deck that you had to finish with. So what were the upgrades, and how did you feel that they did?
Okay, so my idea, so we had a lot of XP to spend in the first scenario still. So
Yeah.
I was able to upgrade both fearlesses to level 2
Mhm.
with the knowledge that I would need to heal horror. So that was good to already have that in my deck. I
Yeah.
upgraded the 2 sword canes because we had a discussion some time ago on your channel about how one thing I want to start doing more is upgrading my weapons
Mm-hmm.
earlier. So I did that. I upgraded the sword canes and I upgraded 1 copy of Shriveling and 1 copy of Azure Flame. And basically all that they do is give you +2, which kind of offsets the Luke to homunculus change, although
Hmm.
you get the +2 anyway. But it was nice to be able to fight some of those bigger spiders at the end with that skill boost because
Yeah.
the mouse mask just didn't do anything after I wasn't Luke anymore. So I felt like having these extra cards to help pass tests was really important. I think the
Yeah.
Sword Cane is a sick upgrade. I wish I could play with it a little bit more, but it was really good here.
Yeah. For sure.
So that's what I spent all my XP on. And then everything else I think is still like a pretty decent level 0 deck. Like
Hmm.
the we've got some economy. We've got Voice of Ra, 2 copies of Uncage the Soul. We've got our 4 spells to fight with as assets. We've got 4 events to fight with. Spectral Razors, of course, and Storm of Spirits. They're all really good. And a reasonable skill package to hopefully draw and commit with the Atlas. But
Yep.
like I think the deck still looks good. It's just
Yeah.
that this stuff plus the homunculus, like they don't need to happen. They didn't need to be
Yeah.
here.
No, I mean, in the thick of it, probably could have survived.
Yeah,
But like the great work in the arcane researches were just kind of like, yeah, why not? Right? I kind of maybe was the devil on your shoulder a bit too much in
you
the
were.
video. We built them. Yeah.
You you were. And I will say, like, for this deck and the Daisy one too, like uh these were not like a traditional deck that I build where there's something kind of a fun, weird interaction going on.
Yep.
And to make up for that, we put the extra trauma stuff in.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the deck was like perfectly good in scenarios 1 and 2, with the caveat that scenario 2 is very hard with
Mhm.
the sticking point in the staircase. So
I mean, I think this deck was actually even showed up in scenario 3 and 4, but you could just tell that the deck was low XP and was like hampered by the obstacles a little bit more
mhm.
because you still killed things, you
Yep,
still like played all your cards. It was just the you could just tell that like you were just like slowed down more by what was ahead of you.
that's right. I do think
Yeah.
that there's a lesson here to all of us that while in the thick of it and arcane research are they're hell of a drug, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they come back to bite you. Probably it's the great work that's the one that just doesn't do enough for the
Yeah.
risk. And putting them all together is like you got to know what you're doing, and you have to play with more protection. There's no wards here. There's no meat soak at all. The Azure Flames and the Shrivelings, both at the end of this campaign, were very scary to play with,
Yeah.
which
Well,
is
that's why
probably
we
how it
had
should be, right?
yeah. Well, that's why we also had in the Joe deck. We'll talk to it, but there were some plans that we had for Luke.
Mm-hmm.
But because pressure was put on Joe to kind of have to do a little bit more,
Yep.
um, it slowed it down, right? It's the thing. You want protection, whether it be team protection or your own
Mm-hmm.
protection, but more protection is probably better than what even is seems like the right amount.
Yeah. So there, if you think about this as this is just Joe, sorry, this is Luke, um, but without an ability, right? Imagine you have the 4 brain instead of the 2, getting the +2 with using skills or spells. Um, it's kind of the same investigator, except for there's no ability here. There's no gate box. In fact, I get 2 more weaknesses instead,
Yep.
which were not great. Um, so can you play a low XP deck? I mean, it's reasonably low. There's still a lot of XP in here. Um, through the last couple scenarios of Dream Eaters with no ability, the answer is yes, you can.
Yeah.
I've played Great Work twice now and have succeeded in the campaign.
Yep.
So let this be a lesson also to you that yeah, you don't play risky, but if you do, you need to see it out.
Yep. Play with all the effects of the card.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. It's more exciting.
It is scary, but it also means that you have to play a little differently and think about what you're doing a little bit more deliberately. I had
Yep.
a turn where I played a research librarian just because I was pretty sure I needed the one soak, even though there was
And
nothing to find.
it turns out you did.
It turns out
Like
I did.
that's but yeah. It changes. I think it's an interesting experience to do it. And if you play the great work and you become the homunculus, ride it out, baby.
You
That's the whole
gotta.
point of it.
You
Yeah.
gotta. All right, that's all I can say about this one. I do feel like Dream Eaters is just like it's not the place to highlight these XP cards or Mystic cards at all, but
No.
we did it. Here it is.
Yep.
Let's look at your Joe deck.
All right. Joe deck. This is actually pretty standard. Let's start with the hunch deck though, because
Mm-hmm.
you and I were talking before. I think this is the best hunch deck I've ever experienced as a Joe Diamond player. And I think it's because of the first time I played with the two latest cards that he got that we have here, which are Breach the Door and then the upgraded Working a Hunch. Upgraded Working a Hunch, when it came out, everyone was like, oh, this is going to be great in Joe, but is it worth the 2 XP? And the answer is if you're playing with 2 players,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's worth the 2 XP.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to just like change the way that you play. And it was the one that I always put back into my hunch deck because it's just free value from anywhere, right? It's just really good.
And let me
Um,
also say that card punches above its weight a bit more in Dream Eaters when there's revealed
because everything's
locations.
revealed. Yes, 100%. Uh Otherwise, burning the midnight oil for economy was good. Seeking answers, I brought that in on the last scenario, was
Mhm.
also really nice. Even just to get 2 clues from like my location, which I did at one point,
Mhm.
just like basically treat it like a deduction. And scene of the crime, using it for just 1 clue, I basically did that as well because it's the idea of just get through the hunch deck. But what I really liked that was a small interaction that I didn't actually realize was going to be so good with both scene of the crime and breach the door.
Mhm.
These were 2 hunches that I was not opposed to shuffling back in to
Right.
get my hunch deck reset. Where like something like burning the midnight oil, if I had to reshuffle that back in, I'd feel pretty bad about it.
Mhm.
Uh, Notably, I did change my hunch deck after scenario one because we had the emergency aids in there to keep Luke alive.
Yep.
And even though I never actually ended up playing emergency aid after that happened, I think that ultimately it was the right choice, even though these were kind of just like taking up space, the emergency aids in the deck.
So I do think that I mean this was a very good hunch deck. I think that after I became the homunculus, that started to get better because you needed to do extra stuff,
Yeah,
right? So getting the clues always was your plan, but now um, you needed to be a little bit more, I don't want to say selfish, but using these cards to push the game state forward was that much more paramount because you weren't waiting around. We didn't want to wait around and draw extra encounter cards. And
yeah,
you think Joe shows this sort of highlight that, hey, if you can do a little bit of everything and maybe even a lot of everything, you can get through the game a lot quicker. And we witnessed that a lot
yeah,
with the last two scenarios on this side that we moved pretty quickly. That wasn't always and ended up being good. I mean, it wasn't a bad thing, but it didn't always end up meaning that we just ended the scenario early, we're done. But you needed to make things happen, and you did.
yeah, yeah.
Like
So you can
even
see at the
these,
bottom here.
yeah, even the breach the
Oh,
doors, I
yeah,
thought were really good.
yeah. This was they were stellar every time they came out. It was a great. Very happy with that one.
Hmm.
But yeah, this was these 5 cards at the bottom: the 2 survival knives, the toe to toe, the vicious blows. These were part of my damage package. But actually, the thing that mattered most was I actually drew and played the Colts, which was really cool because most of my Joe Diamonds I never end up playing this card. But they were very helpful, especially in the latter, like the last scenario in the latter half
Hmm.
of it.
Right. Same thing. So if when you wanted to shuffle these guys back, it was because you were killing things with the Colts,
Yep.
which got you
And
back.
putting the working on hunches, yeah.
Mhm.
And also because I drew normal amount of elder signs, which I highly recommend you do in your next run.
Sure.
uh Otherwise, this is a pretty standard Joe deck for most of my skills, and just like
Hmm.
as you can see, I had the emergency aids and the 2 bizarre diagnoses. These were for Luke at the start of this. Actually, when we were building, I originally had the in the thick of it to take 2 trauma
Hmm.
to start with a scientific theory in my deck. Or it might have been like 2 steady handeds and one more 1 XP card. But we gave you the in the thick of it, and we kept most of these in here to still help you.
Yeah.
But overall, this probably could have been changed into something else. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what. Honestly, probably logical reasoning could have been good as well to get that for you.
Yeah. I don't know. Like in two player, it's also just hard to find time to play these things, especially the way things were
Yeah,
going. Let me
yeah.
ask you about because you've played this set, well, at least these, um, a lot recently. Um, and by recently, I mean in the past like 12 months since
Yes.
Hemlock Vale came out, and then Artistic Inspirations here too. Um, what do you think? Like, can you slot this into any Seeker deck now?
Yeah, I do. That's the problem. Like these 6 cards, I could just like it's the devil on my shoulder, being like, "Hey, do you want to play with chemistry set?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then like, "Okay, you should probably play artistic inspiration and steady handed because they're free,
Yeah.
and they also just give you so much security." I feel like artistic inspiration is better if you have an excess card draw or
Hmm.
discard synergy.
Yep.
So while I don't think artistic inspiration was great in this deck because I ended up discarding cards. Well, I mean that was the nice thing about the emergency aids and this is I would just kind of discard them. Same with even toe to toe.
Yeah.
Um, when I didn't need them. But like if you're a draw heavy, or you have discard synergy, artistic inspiration is crazy no matter what. But if you're playing chemistry set, it's probably worth it as a one of, and then like a one of or maybe two of the steady handed.
Yeah, I
Crazy
agree.
cards.
They are
Yeah.
really crazy, and just like the half lucky is incredible because we had so many -4s in the bag at the end
Yeah.
that just saying okay, I'll cover a -3
Yeah.
is
Means a lot less resources having to be spent. Yeah.
right because lucky covers 2 levels of your token bag cutoffs, but even just one is good enough.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, you also were very fortunate to have indebted,
Yes, along
and
with my unsolved case, I had no weaknesses in my deck, which let me tell you is a big stress relief.
it is.
Yeah,
I didn't mention what mine were, so I started with. I think I started with overzealous. I'm pretty
I
sure I
think you
did,
did. Yeah, and then
which
you
is
got these two after.
thematically appropriate, right? I was overzealous in this deck
Yeah,
building, and then I picked up the paranoia and the down and out. Um, I mean, they were fine. I think I did lose a bunch of money to paranoia once, but it's I don't know. Like every angle was the game was trying to hit me while I was down, so it was I didn't notice them as much. But the overzealous is scary.
yeah, especially when you're homunculite up.
Yep. Ugh. All right. Any last thoughts about that team or those decks?
No, I think we did good. It was very stressful, and I am actually kind of glad we did the silly thing with the great work because I
Hmm.
think it led to a very fun experience. And while you were on the edge of your seat, I think that the homunculus deck actually showed up and did things when it needed to.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a fun experience to kind of rush the game to try to get you through it. Okay.
Yeah, because when I played this before as Kate and also got defeated, there's like nothing that this helps Kate with.
Yeah.
So at least with Luke, I wasn't completely like
Yeah. Because,
useless.
like you said, with Holy Rosary and a Shriveling upgrade, you were attacking at what Luke would be attacking at anyway.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And like I killed 2 Grey Weavers. I'm pretty sure I did all 10 damage. So like you
Yep.
can still do things. Granted, those 2 enemies show up in scenario 1 already. So like you better be able to handle them at 0 XP.
Yes. Yeah.
So but it was fun, and I do think that again, this was not the run for us to be sharing our deck lists to talk about. Make copy this deck list. You'll have a good time with it. Maybe your deck was good, but I don't recommend playing this Luke deck without this challenge in mind, or
Yes.
uh, maybe an 8 scenario campaign you can do better. But uh, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about do exactly what we did, but rather what do we learn from doing things that we might not otherwise recommend, and just kind of
Yep.
what happens in a real campaign. So
Yep. 100%.
I felt like I learned a lot about this, and I was glad to play it because um, it was fun, but it was also challenging to say like, can I get through this? And uh, we did.
We did. Yep.
Now the other group, this is the uh, Daisy and Roland group. I'll just show the Daisy deck here on the screen real quick, and then here is the Roland one. This was supposed to be the conventional group,
Hmm.
and I think overall it was.
Yeah.
I'm
I agree.
let's I'm gonna get rid of these guys. Let's move our decks over. However, I will say with the so I was getting clues and you were getting the enemies off the board. Um, so that we didn't do something weird in that sense. We weren't trying to flex per se. Although Roland did, I was impressed. I haven't seen a Roland in a full campaign in a little while. He actually gets a lot of clues.
He
Who'd have
does.
known?
Yeah.
Uh, but I'll let you talk about your deck first.
So yeah, this deck overall was pretty simple with a little bit of these four cards here. I guess taunt as well. The on the hunts, the dynamite blast. These were kind of teching into the campaign that we were playing,
Hmm.
especially on the hunt. Went especially hard with that one because they work very well in the final scenario on the Dreamers side.
Hmm.
But otherwise, this is actually a very conventional deck. It's a gun deck, something that you see all the time. I think we had some issues of finding the right gun. But I think that realistically, Roland actually has a pretty bad gun pool, at least in terms of one-handed guns, right? Because like most of the gun decks you see are Mark Harrigan. He can play the 32 Colt and get away with it, right?
Hmm.
Or like Leo Anderson, or of course Michael McGlenn, and they have the rogue guns to also use,
That's
right?
right.
Because like, what are the one-handed guns in the Guardian class? And I
You're looking
think
at
I'm
them.
playing them, except for the 32 Colt, which I could not be caught dead playing that card in Roland, right?
That's tough. Yeah.
Um, and we felt that a little bit, especially like in the scenario when I drew the Remington as my only gun for the majority of the scenario.
Hmm.
And when I had all the gun attachments, they were designed in a perfect world to go on the 38 special. I'm playing the advanced version, but it doesn't happen if you draw out of order. Luckily, on the 25, sorry, the 45 automatics, it works very well for those
Hmm.
to get the job done there as well. But overall, this is a pretty simple gun deck using the ammo refill, the extended magazine with events, to use the extra ammunition and the one in the chambers to never run out of bullets. And it turns out it's a good way to not run out of bullets. I very rarely actually, in the scenarios where I drew the things in the right order, would get what I needed. But as you said when we were playing, the ammo build is very, like the firearm build is very fragile depending on how you draw things. Because if you draw all the stuff that puts ammo, but not the guns, you're just sitting on dead cards in your hand.
Yeah. It's too
And
bad
that's
there's
like a
no
little bit rough.
assets that do it, right? Like Venturer and Cleaning Kit, I think, are like the only things that you could play first,
Yeah.
um, and not like waste your time. But it's tough. Like you need the right density of all of these things, and the normal I play the game stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like stand together and
Which I
ladder
had a lot. I had a
persistent.
lot of card draw, like in economy.
Hmm.
Like I had a lot of that. Like if you look at this deck, it's like goal of deck, help make deck better,
Hmm.
right? And then I had some extra. I guess this is actually kind of like its own little thing for damage.
Hmm.
Um, and I did use them to good effect as we played.
Hmm.
Um, and like the skills to go with it. But overall, yeah, there's not too much exciting about this deck, but it was fun to play when it worked out. But it was also some of the most miserable I've been. The Dark Side of the Moon, I was like, I was not in a good place for that video.
No, you were about to walk away.
Yeah.
It was rough, and that this is again like with Daisy helping, right? Like there's a lot of
Yes.
card draw in here, and just sometimes it's a card game. Sometimes
Yep.
you don't
They're
draw
just
all the
on the
pieces.
bottom. They're your bottom five cards. These all right here. These are your bottom three cards of your deck.
Hmm.
And that does not good. That does not do well.
And that happened to me with the Atlas, right?
Yep.
So the yeah, I thought the deck was very powerful when it came online. It did make up for a lot of maybe slowness of playing things because it got clues. And the very first scenario, I think you got the same number of clues as I did, which is
Yeah.
wild at the end of the
Yeah.
scenario when we have to get the 15 or something or
Yeah.
whatever it is. That is very good. I think we played well in this group, but sometimes when you have one scenario out of your four go a little bit haywire, you remember that because it's magnified. It's a
Yes.
quarter of your campaign,
Yeah. 100%.
which I also, I mean, this isn't a discussion about Dream Eaters, but just sort of the idea of a smaller campaign. The first scenario you play with a 0 XP deck, so really only three of the four do you actually get to play with more of your toys, which may have been what influenced my in the thick of it for the Atlas and the Luke
Hmm.
deck.
Yeah. So to have like an earlier shot of being able to play with the fun stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. We did the on the hunt cheese for the last scenario, but also it felt like we needed it.
Yes, it was a very wild little bit there in that last thing where for like being for cheating two of the guys,
Hmm.
feeling like we actually couldn't do it.
Yeah. Um, I don't think there's anything missing in these decks. So we'll look at the Daisy one in a second, but um,
No, I don't think so.
like I don't think there's a like you could have like a Pathfinder or whatever, but I don't think we needed it in Dream Eaters. It's not a movement heavy uh campaign.
No.
Um, like it just felt like once we could do the things our deck was doing, then it was fine. Then also the campaign kind of came for us a bit, and that was nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
let's look at the Daisy deck. So this one had the Down the Rabbit Hole, which is up here, which is a fine card, even if it's a 4 scenario campaign. It's not at
Yeah,
its best, but I think I only bought 2 new cards, and it was the Studious and then the 3 copies of Surprising Find,
yeah.
which we'll talk about
So
later.
you, yeah, so you did get like the value out of it,
Hmm.
which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
that
mean,
that
I
yeah,
think
go
that's
ahead.
a problem with down the rabbit hole of why it's so good is because it's so easy to get the value out of it, even with a few extra purchases,
Hmm.
in addition to the discounts.
Yeah, I mean, again, it like probably the value was just like 2 XP, but that was good enough to play the card. Like, why not? It's
Yeah.
free. It's free in this deck. Okay, so this is a pretty standard Daisy deck, I think, with some tomes. Not crazy on tomes, but if you can find one of them, then you're fine. And I don't think I ever failed to find this stuff.
No.
We had some extra card draw, but really, I think I'd throw inquiry more for the icons than the card draw. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's just good to have a few extra wilds there. And if we're in a big bind, then sure, I'll play it. But it's got a nice backup mode, I think. We've got some more economy. We cracked the case. I had 2 of them earlier. We put more economy into the empirical. It gave me the -3 cost, I think, which I never used at the end, but it did come in handy in the Dark Side of the Moon where I was replaying a bunch of assets because, you know, the game really wanted me to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also had peer review on it. I don't think we needed to give it to you too much, but maybe we
I did
did.
draw a card once. I did draw a card once, I think.
Okay, good, good. Um, Again, I think with the scenarios not being super long, we didn't get a huge amount of value out of that, but it was still fine. Um,
Mhm.
and then we had uh, 2 other things I suppose to talk about, which is I probably should put these guys up here. I wanted to make sure I was leaning a little bit more into my off class, just as part of the challenge, and I knew that I needed to evade things somewhat because you sure couldn't.
Nope, I could not.
I think Mist is really good, especially in Dream Eaters. Um,
Yep.
the card draw or card discard is not bad in Daisy because you usually have extra cards,
Yep.
and this showed up in big force in Dark Side of the Moon. Like we don't win that one
Yes.
without it.
I agreed 100%. This is like the MVP, I think, of this side of the campaign.
And I used it in the last scenario as well.
We did. Yeah.
So that said, how do you pass the test in Daisy? Well, you have 3, you have 4 with this, you have 5 with Wit and Green upgraded,
Yeah.
and you have 6. Geez, you have a lot with
Yeah,
St. Hubert's
it was
Cape.
pretty good.
Hmm.
Yeah. Also, if I remember correctly, these guts were originally slated to go into Luke,
That's right.
but then when he got homunculated, Daisy was like, "Well, we can't let them go to waste. Someone's got to use them."
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So then I had skills because we're doing a little bit of a practice makes perfect thing, which was honestly like fine. It wasn't
Yeah.
busted. We had enough stuff, but it never seemed to like put us over the top.
Mhm.
I'm sure I failed some of those tests. As you saw, there were 31 auto fails or something, or 32 over the whole campaign, and I had 21 of them.
Yeah.
So sometimes that just like whiffs, but otherwise, I wanted to refill stuff with Enraptured, so that could be the Grim Memoir, could be the Mist we just saw, or the upgraded Old Book of Lore. So that was nice.
Yeah. Worked really well here.
Yep. Last thing to talk about was this last ad of Surprising Find. A little bit of a joke that we have now. I never played this card before, and
Never played it.
I thought with the practice makes perfect with the Wit and Green, I would at least find one of them on a search.
Yeah.
No, no.
It was horribly unlucky, and I think it is just very funny that you were like, "I never played this card before," and at the end of the scenario, you still actually never played it. Sure, you committed it, but
Yeah.
you never actually like played it for its function of the card,
No.
which was just kind of very funny.
It was fitting with the whole run.
Yeah.
Speaking of, the nihilism paired with the Necronomicon is also extremely scary.
Yep.
On a
Yeah,
5 health
you
investigator.
really gave nihilism respect, which I think was a good thing to see for this for the run here.
Yeah. Oh man. I feel like this deck was like on the surface is great, and yet it did not perform to the levels of like Daisy is broken or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't think she is in the first place, but she's very strong. Let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. I don't think I've ever asked you about the Necronomicon. Do you ever get rid of this thing?
I try to. I try to now, like, because it is just bad. Because I think that, like, just even though even if you never draw the Elder Sign and treat it as an auto fail,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's just like the extra auto fail in the bag can be soul crushing,
It
right?
really
It's just
is.
like it's just rough. And I think like even though it was only like 2 to 3 or 4 of your auto fails throughout this, just imagine if those were Elder Signs instead, how much better you would feel,
I
right?
could have drawn some more cards.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever saw that happen.
It's a tough one though. It's a tough one to
I got to
like
go
get
back
rid
and
of because it's
see
so
if
intensive.
yeah, it's 3 actions. It's kind of bad to take the horror if you don't have other ways of getting rid of the horror.
Yeah,
Um,
because like realistically, it is actually just like a 2 action weakness.
mhm,
But it's like because you can use your tome action and then you just spend 2 of your actions, so it's basically just like a 2 action weakness.
right.
But it's that horror too. Like the horror is the other part of this, right?
Yeah, and 2 player just seems like it's that's not worth the time, especially if you draw enough that you're just going to see it again.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah,
when we
no, I
played,
used to just ignore it, but I've been starting to try to get rid of it.
I know I feel like I need to as well because like when we saw the other time I played Daisy, this wasn't a big of a problem because I was A, not taking as many tests, and
Yep.
B, I think I was doing more of a like tome thing where I had more slots, right? I was
Yeah.
using the tote bag for more stuff. So this was like, probably I get rid of this. I think I probably had more soak, so I didn't worry about the horror as much. But
Yeah.
with the nihilism, uh,
Yeah. Just like a perfect storm.
yeah, it was kind of bad. But yeah, I mean, I think you could play this in a standalone. I would recommend playing exactly this, just maybe not these.
I like that you tried them though.
I did, I did try. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel we just played the finales. I've watched the other ones somewhat recently too, but I do feel that the game it was stressful, even though we played with a legacy card pool. It was stressful in ways that I haven't experienced with these strong investigators in some time. And I don't think we
Yeah.
were like bad players or something. Like we're never going to say that about ourselves, of course. But also, there's nothing wrong with these decks. It was just that sometimes things don't go your way, and I wonder for people who play the game and say that everything is just super easy all the time. Like, yeah, you can crush the game sometimes, but you can also have a run with the exact same deck and it goes awful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a video I've wanted to do for a while where like I run the same scenario 5 times with the same decks to
Yeah,
just see the variance between them because I think it's higher than people give credit for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we drew just as an example in at the top of my mind. We drew in the last Dream Eaters, sorry, last Web of Dreams scenario. So the big spider one. We drew in order. I drew a spider. You drew the spider attacks the engaged enemy twice.
Twice.
If we had drawn it in the other order, would nothing would have happened.
Yep.
So that's just the
That's
power
just
of
RNG.
Gloria
Yeah.
and anyone else who can manipulate the encounter deck to keep those things from happening. But it's RNG. That's why we play the game. We don't just lay out all the
Yep.
cards and say, okay, we have the right numbers, we win, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So this was a fun run that I think highlighted that, and hopefully it was entertaining for people to watch too, because I think it put us on our toes.
Yeah. I had a great time and I always look forward to the next scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you want, right? You don't want to dread it. So I had a great time and I also hope that people enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And I hope they enjoy seeing the finale of these. Well, they seen it by the time this came out, but like I hope they enjoyed watching the finales.
yeah. And I think we'll figure out some other way to do this. I think you mentioned one way. It was nice to do this for Dream Eaters because we could spin the wheel twice. and then do
Mhm.
all four with one collection. I kind of wish there was another similar sort of thing because I had a lot of fun puzzling out what the teams should look like
Yeah.
based on the stipulation. So that was cool.
Yeah, so the thing that can make it fun with the role is if you don't get like a combination that's like an obvious monster fighter or obvious clover,
Hmm.
and you're like, how do we make this shine, right? Or like you get like, for example, Survivor Rogue, and it's like, okay, we got Preston and Wendy. What are they gonna do? You know, like how much can they continually solve problems that might show up?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
One last thing I'll say is I had a lot of fun playing the homunculus deck with Luke as well. Daisy's one of the investigators that I've played a lot. I've only played Luke once before, and I read
Oh,
about how much people love playing Luke and how he breaks scenarios in the game and all that.
yeah.
And I'm like sitting over here saying, I'm crying watching them have fun with Luke. So I got to try
Yeah.
him again somewhere
Yeah, for sure.
because I think he's still very good. And in the two scenarios that we saw him, he was doing great stuff. But I mean, he had the great work, but he
Yeah.
was. I don't think he was busted in ways that I think people dream about because this is just. It wasn't that kind of
No,
deck, and I don't think
yeah.
those were the scenarios for him either. For that,
And Luke, even though he is very strong and very powerful, he's kind of powerful on like a meta level
yes.
where it's like his stat line is actually completely fair,
Hmm.
and if you take out his gate box, it's also his ability is also very fair. So the fact that he also has the gate box to go with it, but his card pool is very good and very open. But his stat line and even his soak is actually very fair. So it's like one of those things where that's why I think like he's like the perfect designed broken investigator,
Hmm.
because if you don't try to break him, you could just have fun just playing the guy.
Yeah,
And he makes a mean homunculus, I'll tell you that
he
much.
sure does. I think the gate box after hunters move in and engage you is the one thing that is like probably puts him into that tier, right? That broken tier.
Yep,
Otherwise,
100%.
otherwise, I think he's fine and is good and is fun. But I don't think I was able to do that very much in this campaign for various reasons. And yeah, I mean that's just the way it works out sometimes.
Yep, yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, Justin, and we'll see you again sometime on the channel soon. Who knows when, but we'll hook up something else to play in the future.
Hell yeah.
All right. See y'all.